am Kate Coleman, and I am a mother to 3 and a wife to one crazy dude. I have 2 biological children. Isabella is 2 years old, and Riley is 4 months old. My 3rd child I received after I was pregnant with Riley. Chelsea is 15, and my niece. She is a beautiful addition to our family. I love my job and my family very much, and I wouldn't have it any other way. However, when I was younger, it was my desire to travel and work with underprivileged people in third world countries, teaching them that they can make an income to provide for their families. I pursued an associate's degree in individual studies, customizing my program to the career I desired. I then pursued a bachelor's degree in church ministries and missions. I spent some time in Thailand while pursuing that bachelor's degree, teaching the children in one of those slums English. After graduating, my goal to return seemed unattainable, and so I ended up being a children's pastor for a few years. I hated it. I shopped around for different careers and job hopped for a number of years before I started working for Apple. While at Apple, I discovered my joy for teaching. It was then that I pursued my alternate certification and started working for the San Antonio Independent School District as an instructional assistant. Once I got my certification, I moved into a teaching role, and I haven't looked back. What I didn't know when I was younger was that I have an educational ideology all this time, and that very much fits into my desire to work with underprivileged families. My educational theory has always been one of a social constructivist with a behaviorist twist. My theory of using education to create social justice for underprivileged families is exactly what led me to want to go overseas. Yet, here I am doing it right here in San Antonio. San Antonio Independent School District is a very diverse population, and a majority are of a lower socioeconomic status. In continuity of the research done by John Anion, these students typically receive fewer resources, older books, and used desks. They do not see themselves as world changers. They have been told through the actions of others that they are second class. Unfortunately, they have been lied to, and the national politics have something to do with that. This all led me to build strong relationships with the families of my students and create support for not just the student, but the families as well. So why am I pursuing a master's in education? 2 years ago, I received a student in my self-contained classroom that was diagnosed with autism and a speech impairment. His behaviors were severe and overwhelming. A few weeks into that same school year, I received a new student with severe emotional meltdowns that resulted in self-injurious behavior like head hitting. I was again overwhelmed and unsure of how to handle these severe behaviors. I had never received training in managing behavior, and I had no idea how to manage them. This led me to look into furthering my education. I had gone to a few ABA trainings and professional developments, and I was intrigued by the magic of behaviorism. I left my job, but had never before seen behavior transformed near as quickly as when a behavior analyst had assisted with it. I was losing sleep over these students, and I knew there had to be more. This led me to apply for my Master's of Education, specializing in special education with a certificate in ABA. Freire talked about the issues of being oppressed in his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. In referring to his writings, it can be seen that there is a huge gap in our country, people of privilege versus those of the oppressed. As Ladson Billings states it in her article, this oppression rears its ugly head in regards to achievement. The education world has coined this term, the achievement gap. It's an unfortunate truth in our world. Lee also talks about this achievement gap and demonstrates how large this problem is. So, let's talk about students who receive their education within a self-contained classroom versus students with disabilities receiving an education within the general education classroom. In my position as a support person tasked with providing instructional support to teachers in self-contained classrooms, I have seen great teachers advocating for social justice for our most vulnerable student populations. These students are considered oppressed in more ways than one. They are for the most part considered lower socioeconomic with a disability of some sort, receiving an education that is considered by many to be second class. Harrower talks about the necessity of inclusion. However, teachers are having to passionately advocate for these students to have inclusive opportunities in the general education classroom during academic times. Our nation's leadership has set up IDEA and high-stakes testing. It is obvious that the Department of Education wants a high-quality education for students with disabilities. However, by also creating high-stakes testing, they have set up a hostile environment for those same students. So how do we get beyond the notion that our country has set up a system that doesn't really aid students with disabilities in getting a high-quality education? Moran and Nassini said it best when they talked about bringing together two or more specializations. Interdisciplinarity is the start to combating this hostile environment. Interdisciplinarity can mean many things. Teacher collaboration, teaching two subjects together, or including more than one student population to a classroom. In other words, by coming together, students and teachers alike, we find a more encouraging and helpful environment. So, we are missing out on some pretty cool opportunities if we forget to combine our efforts. What this means is in order to help students make great connections to the material being taught and to ensure every student receives a high-quality education, our educators need to combine their skills. And while combining the teacher skills is important, it is also important to be more inclusive within our classrooms. Our classroom should have a diverse group of learners, GT, special education and general education combined with English language learners and English speakers in the mix. We should be targeting many different levels of engagement for students, encompassing all the learning styles available as tools. Education is at its finest when we all work together. Okay, let's talk about learning theories and how they relate to me and my work. Some popular learning theories that have relevance in today's classrooms are as follows. Skinner viewed all behavior as learned and as a result to presented stimulus. Piaget believed development was spontaneous and a learning as a result of experiences. Vygotsky saw learning as something developed in the mix of already known experiences. Lev Wenger thought learning to be unintentional and connected to authentic, meaningful activity. Poppert and Harrell believed that learning is constructed through various real-life activities. Everyone connects differently with learning theories. Classrooms and the way a teacher teaches should be just as unique as the teacher standing in the classroom. Learning theories should be the guiding principles behind every activity, every lesson, and every discussion. It should be inserted into the morning routine and continue working up to the point the students walk onto that bus. So who do I connect with and how does it apply to my work? The learning theories that I connect with most are Skinner's behaviorism and social constructivism. As I am mentoring and coaching teachers, I am working with them within my own understanding of learning theory. I am guiding teachers to work with behavior through behaviorism and academics through social constructivism. So how do we apply all of this information? It is my opinion that everything discussed in this course is incredibly applicable to the classroom. Social justice, interdisciplinarity, politics, the history of education, and important people of education. Learning theories, it's all incredibly applicable. We need to be learning from our history. Claudia Golden helps us learn from our past, the successes and the failures, when she wrote about our history. We have gotten it all wrong because we are not acknowledging that students have something to give and that we can learn just as much from them as they from us. Prinsky talks about the level of student engagement in our classrooms and that our students know more than we do in some areas, most specifically the digital areas. Sometimes collaboration doesn't just mean working with our coworkers. Sometimes collaboration could mean working side by side with our students to get to the bottom of a skill or task in such a way that we all, teachers included, learn something. Within my job, I am entrusted with 23 teachers to mentor, coach, and guide into better educators. We have a duty and an obligation to do right by the students in those classrooms and their families. How do we do that? We apply the information from this course. Nationally and statewide, I can keep track of the laws being passed, the regulations being discussed and debated. I can support or defend the necessary laws or advocate against the laws that would not be good for our classrooms and our students. I can take the information I gather from keeping track of this information and pass it on to my teachers. I can encourage them to also fight for or against laws being passed. And I encourage them to advocate for their classrooms and students on the political field. I can coach my teachers on learning theories and collaboration. I can help them define their own path down a learning theory and then guide them into how to implement that into their classroom. I can model for them ways to include their theories and principles into their way of interacting with their students. I can model collaboration by showing them how I work with my coworkers, and I can encourage collaboration by setting up work sessions across feeder patterns so teachers in our self-contained classrooms have another teacher to collaborate with. I hope my thoughts on interdisciplinary learning and teaching has been informative. This is Kate Coleman, signing out.